Special deviations from the Oklahoma Child Support Guidelines. Tulsa attorney James Wirth are doing a series related to child support in Oklahoma. Prior video is about deviations from the Oklahoma Child Support Guidelines and when you can do so. And this one is about 3 additional times when you can deviate from the child support guidelines under special circumstances. So what are those? The first one is related to when a child is in DHS or state custody. So if Child Protective Services removes a child from the home, puts it into state custody, you're going through a deprived child action, then it is somewhat common, and the statute allows a deviation downward from the child support guidelines so that the parents are paying less child support, because working a plan in a deprived child case, working through your ISP, individualized service plan, can be costly and put expenses on the parents. They could be needing to get a household set up properly. They could be paying cost towards certain classes. So the statute, which is Oklahoma Title 43, Section 118H, and we're dealing with subsection F there, it allows a deviation downward so that the parents have more funds available to pay on those things rather than paying child support that's ultimately going to the state while the state has custody of the children. So that's the first one. The second one is extraordinary educational expenses. And this relates to if the parents have a child of special needs. And I'll just read the statute for you. It's subsection G of Title 43, Section 118H. Extraordinary educational expenses may be added to the presumptive child support as a deviation. Extraordinary educational expenses include, or but not limited to, tuition, room and board, books, fees, and other reasonable and necessary expenses associated with special needs education for a child with a disability under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And also that the costs have to be appropriate based on the financial abilities of the parents. And in determining the amount of a deviation for extraordinary educational expenses, scholarships, grants, stipends, and other cost reduction programs should be considered. So that's the second one. The third special type of deviation is for special expenses. And this deals with like private school tuition, but it's only available in limited circumstances. So it's also Title 43, Section 118H. We're dealing with subsection H then, special expenses. And it says that special expenses incurred for child rearing, which can be quantified, may be added to the child support obligation as a deviation upward from the current monthly child support obligation. Such expenses include, but are not limited to, private school tuition, camp, music or art lessons, travel, school-sponsored extracurricular activities such as band, clubs, athletics, and other activities intended to enhance the athletic, social, or cultural development of a child, but that are not otherwise required to be used in the calculating child support order, as are health insurance premiums and work-related child care costs. So some factors in determining whether to deviate for extraordinary expenses include a history of expenditures for such activities, the financial abilities of the parents, and whether the child has exhibited an extraordinary aptitude for the activity that you're talking about. And just like on the prior one, if there's grants, stipends, or other cost-reducing programs that are being provided, that is factored in as well. So this one deals with primarily extracurricular costs, private school tuition, and the main factor the court's going to look at if we're deviating to make that part of the child support obligation is whether that was historically provided prior to the child coming before the court on this issue. So if you're going through a divorce and the kids have been getting this for the last 10 years, odds are that the judge is probably going to continue that and order this deviation upward for special expenses. So those are 3 types of special circumstances where you can get a deviation. 1, where the child is in state custody, you got a deprived child action going on, and they deviate downwards so the parents have more funds to pay towards things required on their ISP. 2, if you've got a child with special needs that has additional schooling costs, educational costs, then there could be a deviation upwards to cover that. And 3 would be for special extracurricular activities or private school where those have been provided for before, or where the child has extraordinary aptitude for an activity. The court can consider that as well. So if you've got questions about a matter in Oklahoma related to family law or child support, you're going to want to talk to an attorney about your circumstances privately and confidentially. To get that scheduled with somebody at my office, you can go online to makelawEasy.com.